Welcome to Agencyphonics episode 2 for Pete and 7 for me. Simon had to tell me because I keep forgetting which episode. No, so we're episode 7 and just a brief recap. We wrote a book, Pete and I. He wrote all the funny bits, I wrote all the serious bits. And the book went really, really well. But before we wrote it, the editor said, you know, you should write about one thing in detail, which is probably the number one reason why I never get to finish books, because I get the point really quickly and then don't do it. But anyway, we covered all areas of agency life, but we didn't get to go to enough detail, maybe give enough specific examples of some of the things we've experienced. So we created the Vodcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you came up with the name Agencyphonics. Actually, you came up with the name Agencynomics as well. So the FD in the room is the creative genius.
Yeah, I like I'm humble about these things. My talents.
Well, I'll help you brag about it. So now there's another little story about this actually, which just popped into my head because it was Rebecca's fault. Our guest Rebecca, who you're going to find out who she is in a minute. Actually, she was the one that said, whatever you do when you do the audiobook, don't get a man reading it, because there's so many men reading audiobooks, and although my ego and our egos, both of us, my ego, you haven't really got one, have you? No. But Pete, we were going to read the book out, but actually Rebecca inspired us to not do that. And in fact, you were going to be that person. And actually, because we'll find out a bit more about that in a minute, because a bit of a background for Rebecca, but we did in the end, because of work commitments, you were quite busy at the time.
We found it might have been too much of a stitch up for her to spend 6 months recording our book for us.
It's not easy doing an audiobook. But what happened was we did actually manage to find a voiceover artist called Abba offer, and she was brilliant, and she recorded it. And so I'm quite thank you to that. So as always, the episode is made, Pete and I and everyone that helps create all of the events, everything behind Agencynomics. It's all a not-for-profit. So is this Vodcast. And thank you to Simon and the team at Wirehive who donate their time to help produce. We've also got Caitlin here helping produce today as well. And you should know more about her from the previous episode if you listen to it. And we are going to, just get straight into the episode, I think, Pete, yeah?
Yeah, boom. Let's do it.
So, welcome to Rebecca. Do you know what is Lewis? What? Sorry,
Lewis Smith.
Lewis Smith. I had a complete letter from doing a live show. I've only known you for 4 years or something.
Next note for next show notes. Name of guest.
When you know the guest, still write their name down in case you forget it. Sorry. Maybe it gets confusing because of Marcus's name. I don't know. Anyway, so welcome, and you are. So tell us about you and your business.
Right. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited to be here. It's a fun thing to do on a Friday day to come down and talk about things that I'm super passionate about. I am the managing director and one of the co-founders of Fountain. We are a digital marketing agency based in sunny Norwich, of all places.
Yeah, it's a long way from here.
Yeah, it's not.
It's a long way from everywhere, really, Norwich.
It is. It's great.
It's nearer Amsterdam than it is.
Rebecca left at 3:30 this morning, so it's a fair distance.
Yeah. It's not the easiest of places to get to or from, but it is lovely to be there.
Yeah, I'm sure. So there's lots of things that I want. I've known you for a little while now, and there's some things that I'm hugely passionate about that you do. And Pete and I would say, we often reference you, when we talk about awards, because we think the way you approach that's very, very good. So I want to get into that a bit later on. Also, you run your own podcast.
I do.
We're going to turn this into a podcast after the Vodcast. We're just starting here. There's no editing.
Do you know what will drive you nuts?
As you can see, when I got the name wrong, there's no escape. Lewis Smith, I'll never ever forget that. Sorry.
I'll tell you what will drive you nuts about putting this on podcasting platforms is that the analytics in it is ridiculous. So we're sitting there as a performance agency being how many people are listening? All you can get is how many people have downloaded an episode to their device. Right. You can't see how much they've listened to of it.
You can on YouTube.
Yeah, totally on YouTube.
But you can't on
can't on Apple Podcasts.
Do you know what? You are right, because I remember Rob, who's the CEO of Wirehive, where he did Alexa Stop podcast, and he remember him telling me the same. And I think actually YouTube's been quite interesting for us because you either listen to a little bit or you listen to the whole thing. It's quite interesting. But I think most of these podcasts they're actually better on the second half, because we're always getting, we're telling the story at the beginning, and as you go through, the information gets richer and richer. But I want to
stick with it, guys.
Yes, yeah. Don't quit yet. It's more juicy stuff to come. So obviously you do culture awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and also the journey from really yourself in the agency to becoming, quite a bit of a culture expert now. And you've certainly gone on a fantastic journey. I've been really, really delighted to watch that as well. What else? Oh yeah. We got the Ford. You got. Oh yeah. Well, let's just ask the question. So tell us how you got the agency started.
Right. So
we'll get to that bit. I was going to say. Go on.
So we have been going for 11 years.
Yep.
And like so many agencies, we started on a tiny little desk in a rented room in a house when we were
so where did you start? Because I've been keeping a track on this. We've got garages, and front room was the one you did this morning. So
ours was a shared bedroom in a shared house. So we were living student style.
Shared bedroom. That's the second bedroom I think we've had. But yeah, bedrooms. Wow. Okay.
And our desk was so small that when we I think we borrowed some money from Marcus's dad to get a MacBook, so that we actually weren't working on crappy little computers. And our desk was almost too small to fit
Banker
it on.
Mum and Dad, come through again.
We did pay him back very quickly.
Yeah, good.
But so the early days were basically us just working out that it was in the middle of the recession. It was
what year did you start?
Very beginning of 2009, and we quit our jobs and came home.
Best time to start a business.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying, because with Brexit, this year's the best year to start a business.
Oh, totally.
Every time it's down.
My theory about it was that we did all of the hard work when everything was hard anyway.
Yeah.
And so as soon as the economy lifted, actually we had a much smoother run of things because we'd done all of those like initial really tough things already. So we didn't have that sort of false sense of a start based on the economy and then a downturn with the recession. I think if we'd have started 2 years before, we probably would have ended during that recession.
Although digital marketing did kind of have a little bit of a sweet spot, didn't it, around the time you started? I think it really got a bit of momentum. I think it's the one where everybody else was struggling. I always saw digital marketing being quite the in thing around 2010, but maybe the clients still were.
So 2010, 2011 was when it started picking up.
Of course.
But sort of going into
the first bit, yes.
The first year where so we started the agency. There are 4 of us. I'm one of the co-founders, and we are 2 couples running the agency.
That was the bit I was almost going to give away too early. So we have this thing where a lot of people we work with are our husband and wife teams. Mm-hmm. And, and it has its strengths, has its advantages, but you've got 2 couples in.
Someone once referred to us as the Abba of SEO.
Abba.
That's brilliant.
I think that's going to be the title of this podcast. Yeah. Abba of SEO.
So, I mean, you guys know Laura as well, so we obviously have spent a lot of hours sort of perfecting our Abba dancing. We haven't. We should.
So the 2 things, I guess, that we always... talk about when we talk about the early stages of agencies, it's sometimes when if you've got one director, one owner, it's quite lonely.
Yeah, definitely.
And then when you've got like 2, it's normally quite good because one person's doing and one person's selling. Well, that's normally the way we see it. But then when you've got 4 people, you've got to hope that they've all got
I think we also talk about it. It puts a lot of pressure on the finances, I think, having 4 employees effectively from day one to try and pay salaries on those. That's quite hard, I think.
I think where we lucked out on that was that we were so young when we started, so we hadn't actually earned good money yet. So we just scraped by. I remember, I'd sort of joke that in the first year of the business I would
was it straight from university or
no, so I was a receptionist before I was managing director. So I
and when does the actress bit fit in? Because that's why the Vodcast thing.
Yeah, so I did a drama degree and I spent a couple of years after I graduated being an actress waitress. I set up a touring theatre company. We did all the Norfolk theatres. I was famous in Bungay, Suffolk at one point. And then I realised that the type of theatre that was possible to do commercially just wasn't worth it for the never taking time off. And I was sort of any time that I wasn't acting or rehearsing or whatever, I was waitressing, and it just wasn't quite worth it. So sort of went into admin-y type jobs. And then while I was acting, I'd met Marcus, and we sort of came up with the idea of, hey, we could do this. Marcus is the the strategist, the genius behind what we do, and has always been very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And I'm more of the
entrepreneurial and very tiring.
Sorry, you can say that.
We just stuck that one in. Sorry, Marcus.
I think should we play a drinking game on how many times you and Pete can.
I love it that he's probably
Marcus.
listening to this. There's nothing he can do about
it. No, so Marcus is the genius behind.
Marcus is a bit like me. That stereotypical entrepreneur. He's sort of very kind of
high energy.
High energy. That's the word.
High energy, very visionary, all of those things.
Yeah.
And so when we first started out, the first few months was just me and Marcus. And the way that I used to say it was that he would like pitch the ball of where we were headed to, and I would see where it had gone to and go, okay, let's lay some tracks and get the work going in that direction.
But none of you had an agency background, not all four of you. So it's funny, I think Pete and I were saying earlier on, it's like about 50% of people we meet have started an agency and then 50% haven't, but none of you four had either.
No, so we hadn't even worked in agency. So Rob, Laura and I were all working in a recruitment company.
That's why I mainly hadn't worked on, sorry.
Yeah, we were working in a recruitment company. I was a receptionist and they realised I could write good copy, so they started creating this marketing role for me. I was being paid £12,000 a year. Like they were not paying me as a marketing manager, but I started doing that role. And then they realised I had too much on, so they hired Laura to work alongside me. So that's how I met Rob and Laura.
Right.
And then the talking about culture, which we'll get on to talking about, it was an intensely toxic working environment. So even mid-recession, they just had people leaving.
This is so common that people who really, really care about culture come from places that are horrible to work, and then they try and invent a place that's the direct opposite of that.
Exactly. And I think, in the early days, as well as wanting to do something that was exciting and ours and sort of have that sort of entrepreneurial energy to it, we also just had that really strong need to work somewhere that we wanted to be every day with people that we wanted to be with every day. And at the end, or not the end, this isn't the end, this is just part of our journey, whoa. But I guess the foundation that set in for us was that was part of the founding principle of Fountain, was that we wanted to do good work with people we liked. And now you look at our team of 37 and they are good people and I love working with them. And that we've managed to carry that on through.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I guess the lesson then around having many directors at early stage was I think it is an important lesson, is you weren't a financial burden, as Pete said, on the business as much, because you were kind of young and you weren't taking much money out.
Yeah. You didn't have mortgages, you weren't, didn't have children at that time, so.
Yeah, we scraped by. I mean, my joke is that there were at least 2 months that the business only survived because Rob and Laura's rent went out at the beginning of the month and ours went out in the middle of the month, and with invoices coming in, we could just about make it work. And it's funny. I always think that it's actually quite good to have had that experience in business. Like if we had started with a sort of massive injection of cash, we wouldn't have learned some of the lessons that we learned early on about really, really being cost efficient, which I think they're hard to learn if you don't have to do it in that kind of time.
Totally agree.
We find that, don't we? When we go into businesses and they've got lots of cash,
they're the most complacent. They're less worried about if there's not enough work coming in. Don't really chase the debts, don't really need to.
Don't invoice people quickly.
Yeah.
I think equally, we've definitely had a phase of going through that bad habit where it's things are going well now, the cash is flowing in, okay, foot off the gas, it's all good, kind of thing. But then we had a little wake up call to remind ourselves to no, get back on it.
Yeah, that's good. So so what year did you start? It was 2008? Nine. And when did is that all four of you then?
So it started off, Marcus and I, early 2009. Rob and Laura joined us by the end of 2009. So, they were still working at the recruitment company, decided it was awful and went off travelling.
Yeah.
And before they left, we said to them, hey, when you get back, come work with us. And they did, and it was awesome. I remember while they were away worrying that they wouldn't. So setting desks up for them. Well, it was more that I worried that they'd come back and be like, yeah, actually, I'm just going to go and get this job. So I set up desks for them in our living room. So by that time we'd moved into a house that had a living room, which was our office for the first 3 years.
Right, wow, so 3 years there, that's quite a while.
Yeah, until I just lost my shit and said we had to get an office.
And the four of you though, personality wise and sort of job, I mean, you must have changed. Have you changed what you've done through the agency journey so far, or?
So we definitely.
And how have you dealt with that change as well? Because you must have had to do jobs early on.
Yeah, so early on, when we first started, Marcus and I were both in service delivery, and sort of we were the engine of making money. as soon as we started doing paid search, Laura was just a wizard at it. She was sort of, I'm not going to be modest on her behalf. I think she was one of the best people at PPC in the country at the time. She was absolutely brilliant. And some of the places where we sort of, I hate the term cut our teeth, but I'm going to use it anyway. It always puts me a little bit on edge. But where we cut our teeth in paid search were incredibly difficult clients. And she was taking on clients that were making massive losses and turning them around within the first couple of months.
Wow.
So then it was Marcus and Laura who were the sort of engine of delivering services. Rob has always been business development, commercial relationships, that side of things. And I transitioned from service delivery into more, I guess, the managing director role. But also I went through a phase of maybe being a bit client services-ish until I went on maternity leave and took as many steps back as I could without panicking.
Yeah. And so all I think when I last saw you, it's you're MD now, but you've got a MD designate.
Yes. So our longest serving staff member, Alice, who is absolutely remarkable and wonderful, she is going to be taking over managing director from me.
And then what are you going to do?
I am going to float off without the burden on my shoulders of being managing director. No, I'm not. I'm going to be around. My role is going to be focused on people and culture, and I have another team member working with me, Emma, who's going to be working with me on that whole side of the business.
Yeah. So Marcus is still doing the strategy, Rob's doing the business development, and then Laura, her role's moved on, right? So how did her role transition?
So she moved out of service delivery maybe like 4 years ago. Was she in service delivery when we first met you guys? I don't think she was.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Financial stuff. She's a bit more operational.
So her job now is a lot more on the operation side, but because she has the background in the tools of what we do, she gets pulled into service delivery more than anyone else. And our mission, I'd say this year, is to get her completely out of that and just focusing on the on the operation side of the business and on things like we have a system that we've built internally called Jet, because fountains have jets of water.
Right.
Laura named that, by the way. So there you go.
So it's always the quiet ones who are really good at brands.
The high detail people.
If she was here now,
they are. Do you know what? There is something in there. Most techies I meet who are, coders, they're actually really creative. There's a lot of good creativity from them. So anyway.
Absolutely. So her role is going to be a lot more about how we do what we do. We used to joke that if Marcus was about making the boat go faster and where it's headed, that kind of thing, Laura was about making it go as smoothly as possible.
I think you guys are so fortunate because there's four of you, but somehow you've managed to get all the roles to kind of like work.
There's no crossover.
No, I mean it's really nice,
complementary fit.
Yeah, I think the thing that's interesting about it is that whenever you do any kind of like personality test things, like where there's a spectrum of personalities, we just sit across them. And one of my favourite things, and the people among us, I'd say Rob and I sit somewhere in the middle, and then Marcus and Laura are on extreme ends of that spectrum. And over the years, there have been times where they have found it hard working together. But my absolute favourite times in meetings are when, let's say, we've got a meeting that Marcus isn't able to be there at, and Laura just goes, wait a second, I'm going to put my Marcus hat on. And she recognises that the strengths of his viewpoint are going to be really valuable to this conversation, and she knows it's not her area of strength, that she's able to sort of shift her perspective to it. And equally, you've got Marcus there saying, okay, I think we should do this. Wait a second, what would Laura say? And I love that. I feel like that's where those collaborations really work. Yeah,
and I'm reading this book at the moment called Stealing Fire, and it talks about this kind of collective consciousness, and it talks about a lot about how in business people are using new, more progressive techniques around meditation, flotation tanks, all that stuff. How the Navy SEALs go into alpha state before they go into things like it's very clever, and I think having a team, a high performing team of owners like you guys, where you kind of know each other's, you know each other's emotions, you kind of can. I think that's really important. I mean, kind of as the sum of the four is greater, right, than the individual of you. So I think that's really good that you've got to that. I remember the first time I spoke to Marcus and Rob, I just had this flashback. And I was in my bedroom. And I
sounds like it was traumatic.
No, I do, because I do these phone calls, right? I do phone calls to help people out and stuff. And every day, there's morning and evening, there's someone ringing up saying, "We're here, we're trying to get here." And I did that call with that. You guys were doing about 40 grand a month, I think, at the 40 grand a month. And it was like, how do we get to 1 million? That was the question. I said, I'll do 4 things. I can't remember a couple of them, but it was 4 things I said. And then it was so funny because like a year later, Rob, right, we've done the 4 things. We're at 1 million. Now what? It's like, okay, but you did grow really quickly because it was like 1 year to go from, I don't know, get about 350. I felt like it was about a year.
It was. So it was, that year was 2017, and it was because I'm just going to take a moment because you did mention our awards earlier. So,
yes. Because it is important to say. I'll talk about.
Basically, in 2016, Google, we went to the Google Premier Partner Awards. We had only just qualified as a Premier Partner, like we hadn't been one for a very long time, so the spend through our accounts hadn't qualified for it for a while. But we won Best Search Performance in 2016, and
well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a big award, right?
Yeah, it was huge. And then in 2017, we won for growing businesses online. And then they did their first ever global awards, and we won globally. Wow. By the way, first ever and only so far. So we still hold that 2017 title.
It's the
with
biggest
pride.
award and the heaviest award. When you go to that office, so you've seen that award on the show?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the World Cup. It's just like, is it made of gold?
I don't think it is made of gold. I think it's made of.
You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
What?
Melt it down, put it on the balance sheet.
If you can melt that down, I would do that.
I have to say, I think it's been worth more to us than it would be in its way.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
We went from at the end of. I'm going to do this in team members rather than turnover, but when we won the award, there were nine or 10 people in our office. That was in October, November 2016, and we were moving office in 2017, and we'd taken on a place that we thought was way too big for us because it was going to fit like 22 people, and that felt like really risky, and we had already lined up people to rent out some offices from us. Within 7 months, we had to take a second office around the corner.
Wow.
We went, I think at our largest, we got to 41.
So tell us what the impact was then of that award. Like what happened?
So I think the simplest way of saying it is that it was a mic drop moment in any pitch.
Yep.
Right? So you're sitting and pitching and you're saying, why should you choose us over someone else? And we have lots of reasons for that. And I'm sure every single agency owner listening to this podcast has their reasons as well. So I'm not going to bang on about all of that. But there's a moment where you can say, oh, and Google said we're the best in the world at doing this. And that's quite powerful. It goes a long way.
They were a client as well, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that.
We can't edit. It's live. They won't.
I didn't say it.
They won't be listening.
Hopefully. It's on YouTube, right?
They just appreciate the free publicity. It's all right.
Exactly. But yeah, so
we'll get an injunction through probably, getting closed down.
As long as it's you guys, not us.
I'm all right. Pete does legals.
Showing my age now, but I'll stand by the facts.
Anyway, sorry, we digress. So you were going into the pitch, just name checking it. It built trust.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think in terms of being able to say Google have named us the best in the world at doing what we do is a very, very clear way of winning a pitch.
Yeah.
And I think in a way, there was also something about it that, I mean, this is fluffier. It's not as succinct as that. But I think actually for our team as well, winning that award and having Google say that, it just like everyone sat a little bit straighter and was a little, like I remember.
But even I'm sitting up right
now
exactly,
as well.
Yeah,
in the presence of. No, but I think that just that element of like feeling like you're part of a team that's achieved that. And recognizing that that our methodology, that at the end of the day, has just come from our heads and our experience, and Marcus's genius and Laura's like ability to see a way through these complex spreadsheets and numbers
and Rob's amazing ability to build partnerships. Like I'm getting him to speak at one of our events next on that because he has done. I know Marcus and him do it together as well, and you as well. But his drive on creating partnerships with other people and agencies has been, I think there's a bit, I don't want to quote figures, but I'm sure you have a large amount of your business has come from partnerships, hasn't it? Yeah, as a result. Absolutely. And that's definitely, so the awards and that, but didn't you have a problem though where you had almost too much inbound happening after the award as well? Because I seem to remember there was a story once that we all got really, really busy and like you had to then start qualifying a lot harder because it was like there was so much. I
think we went through a phase. So the story around the award is also that at that time that the business development picked up hugely because of the award. Yeah. We also went through one of the toughest things that we had ever been through, and it's when people say don't take on a client that's a large percentage of your turnover.
Yeah.
So the truth is that from when we had that call with you and we were at 40,000, the way that we got to 1 million was one client.
Okay.
They doubled our turnover overnight, and by the time we lost them a year later, they were only like I said like 37% of our turnover. So we'd managed to like grow around them as well. But it was a traumatic event for our agency, and it was one of those things that was so completely out of our control. It was a new marketing director had been brought in. We'd absolutely smashed all targets, and she came in after we'd hit the targets, and just brought her other.
And do you know, there's a really important lesson there as well around. So I was talking to someone last night, and he rang me up and he said, "I've just lost this piece of business. New marketing managers just come in." And we've made one mistake 3 months in, they're replacing us. And I was like,
whoever that person is, I send them a hug right now. I'm there. I know.
And I said to him, that's one of the calls I do. And he said, what are we doing wrong? Because it's happened 2 or 3 times. And as it turns out, I said, well, look, always survey your clients and find out why they're leaving you. Of course, if you've got a high staff turnover. But in this case, I was like, there are a certain set of rules. If a new marketing manager goes into the role, you have to get in there quickly, because they will have already worked with an agency they trust, who's got their back, who's helped them win awards, who's done everything, who will have their own agenda. And you have to get in there and you have to not make a mistake, because if you give them an inch, they're going to just say, you know what, I'm going to just get somebody.
Give them the excuse.
Gives them the excuse. And this is what had happened.
But the thing that I would also say is
you said to me back then you felt like there was a lesson learned with you guys as well. I mean, maybe there wasn't much you could do, but you did feel that you were quite slow, I think, to go into that one.
Yeah, totally. We could definitely have done more. It was a really bitter pill to swallow, and I think we learned a lot from it. But I think the other side of it is that at the end of the day, we don't really want to work with clients who are waiting to catch us out. It's a really horrible thing for a team. We're talking about culture. One of the things I remember happening there was our team put together this incredible report where they'd done so much work, had gone into it. We'd had it externally proofread, like we were properly trying to get this to be the best thing ever. And what it was telling the client was that we had not just hit, but absolutely smashed their targets. We got their cost per acquisition down from over £300 to I think the target was 40 and we got it to 18. This is amazing news. And the only response they got from this woman was, "There's a typo on page 3. Yeah. That's not particularly nice if you've worked. If you're the person who sat up late in the evening working on it and put your heart and soul into it. At the end of the day, we don't want to put our team members through that, because that's just shit.
But karma comes and plays its hand, though, doesn't it, in these situations?
It does.
Yeah. We won't go into that.
If you're watching on the video.
So I just wanted to add one thing on the awards, just going back to that. You had, if I recall, I remember you telling me a great story around your process around how you approach awards.
Yeah.
So it might be interesting to hear something on that, because I thought it stuck in the mind for me, and I thought it was quite incredible. The
truth is that I went about award writing in the same way that I went about getting a first at university. And for all of the younger listeners out there are criteria.
What's university? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I did a drama degree. It's seen me far. But, so in order to ace an essay at uni, you need to demonstrate certain things. And unbeknownst to most students out there are these criteria that sit there that say, in order to get a first, you need to do these 17 things or whatever they are. And so, how to game getting a first at uni is to find those criteria, checkbox them out, and then write your essay and make sure that you've answered all of those things. So they don't just want depth on a subject, they want you to demonstrate breadth in the area as well. Reference some other fields of theatre in my aspect. And so the approach that I take to all award entries is pretty much exactly the same, right? So whoever's putting out the award is going to have a checklist that they go through when they look at award entries. And so you sit there with the criteria, you break it down, and they say, we're looking for a innovative agency that shows that they care about their team and have demonstrated growth. And you make that into innovation, care, team, growth. And then you make sure that in your entry, you're just answering every single one of those. And then on top of that, I would say, if you have copywriters in your business, just make sure that it's an emotive story. And people reading this are like, wow, that's amazing.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you were really you didn't just kind of fill out the entry form for the award and send it off.
No, we also made I think for the first one we made a landing page. So as well as putting all of our answers into a form, we made a landing page and we sent them to it. We put some remarketing code on that landing page
Of course you did.
for those judges.
So they were stalked by your...
Yeah, we made a bit more of an experience out of it. We made a video.
It's clever. So
Interestingly,
you also knew who looked at it and who didn't as well, I guess.
Totally. And we knew because they were also, we were UK based, the judges were US and Ireland based. So we were able to be like, aha.
Yeah.
But I think the other side, so the interesting thing now is that you can't enter the Google Premier Partner Awards without doing some of those things. Yeah. Or like either they go like, okay, enter your landing page here, and we're like, God damn it, that was our plan. And then, or they'll say you cannot add anything in it. You only can do this form because
cookies. No.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was because we bugged them too much.
Yeah,
but it worked.
Yeah, it's good. I think the also you knew who was judge. I guess you knew the judges as well.
So we only knew what they'd said on their website. So we didn't know the individuals.
No, but
we
I think,
knew the companies.
I think I had. Do you remember we had something recently where we got some insight into an award that was won, and we saw both entries because we worked with both parties, so we got to see both, right? And we noticed that one was much stronger than the other, but they didn't win. And we also knew that the owner had a better network and the brand, the actual agency was better known. And so I think that we have to remember that judges are human too. I've done a lot of judging, and I would say I'm always as honest with my judging process and stuff. And I think it's very hard, like even if someone was a friend, it wouldn't cause a bias, but there isn't to say there's not unconscious bias, right? Which is, I think, if I've heard of someone and I've seen them, I might vote for them because I actually know that there were these people, I've never heard of them before, but that there's talk, so I guess what I'm trying to say is understanding who the judges are, and in some way I'm just saying, find a way to make sure that they recognise your agency. If someone's a member of trade body, like, I don't know, just so they know who you are. I think
in a way, exactly what you're talking about is why we loved the Google Awards. The fact that we were even shortlisted that first year when we were this like tiny agency based in Norwich of all freaking places. Like there's the fact that I guess when Google are judging their awards, they've got access to all the data. You can't spin any numbers, right? Because you're talking about search performance in their platforms. And equally, their judges were coming from Deloitte, so they're sort of so far removed.
Wow,
and in a way, that's why we love them as awards, because it's not about networks. Because actually, that's partly why we don't go in for masses of the industry awards, because it's like, oh god, it just like it comes down to how many tickets you've bought.
And at that time, maybe 3-4 years ago, you probably didn't have a network that you have now.
Absolutely,
so it would have been very hard to do that.
Exactly, and so that first award, I mean, I think that when we won that award, it was me, Laura, and Alice in Dublin. And like, we were just so in shock that we'd won it. Like, it felt so ridiculously remarkable because we were kind of there for a jolly that Google was sending us to. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were shortlisted for the award. Yeah, let's go along. Great. We had no expectation of winning at all, and especially not like the big one of the night, the search performance. Yeah.
When we had Blue Halo, we didn't. We were very cynical about awards, and like you just said, like we wouldn't really. I just didn't. Because I didn't know what I didn't know as well, because I hadn't come from agency background either. And I just didn't. I saw certain awards, I saw certain people winning them all the time, and I just thought, oh, you know what? I just don't know whether I trust the process. And actually, going into all the agencies that we've now been into, I've gone. I mean, there's one thing that you changing your belief system. Like we have certain beliefs when you run a business, and you go out and you suddenly have new conversations and it changes perspective. And for me, awards is one of those. I mean, the guest actually was supposed to be on last week. Unfortunately, we had a technical problem. It's good, real life, things go wrong. We fixed it now, new hardware, more money. But I know he'd surveyed or he'd studied a load of agencies in Bournemouth. And I don't have the data to hand, but he proved that something like there was a X times uplift on the agencies that won awards. and it probably is because, ultimately it augments the brand, the agency name, the recall recognition, all of those things. And so ultimately I think it is a really important part now of the business. Obviously it's better to enter in awards that I think sometimes are in the sectors that you're in necessarily than the industry awards, but even though I was cynical about bias, I haven't actually seen a lot of it. I mean, from judging it and everything, I know it, but every now and then I still think that if you're a better known agency, it will help.
I think there's also some of the awards, the industry awards, events that we've been to. I feel like with a lot of the awards, you can sit and look at the shortlist, and the names you recognise are probably the ones who are going to win. And I think that is the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Is that it is the more recognised brands, and not just of agencies, but also of clients. That actually, the award that we won the global award for is for a company called Cam & Hooper, who do high-end event space in London. But they're really niche. Like, no one's heard of them apart from, in fact, the brands that their venues are stronger than the brand Cam & Hooper, right? And again, that's why I love that approach to the award, because the uplift that we delivered to them was ridiculous. Like, it was an awesome case study of growing a business online.
I've judged actually quite a lot of paid search stuff. I mean, they're the most dullest sector. Like, you want to judge anything, you want to judge the advertising campaign, because it's just all numbers, right? Yeah. So for me,
sounds fantastic.
I feel like maybe you're sending the wrong person between you guys.
If anyone out there needs to judge, give me a call.
Honestly, it's full of spreadsheets.
You know, you're going to get Pete. You're now going to get asked to do some.
I think Pete is available to sponsors.
No. Absolutely,
but not for the design ones. You don't want to waste time with all that fluffy stuff, right?
Branding, but yeah.
Yeah, he's good at branding. So but when you're judging, I think also. So this is a good point as well. So I went to these trade body awards about 4 or 5 years ago, and this one agency won everything. And their award entry, they spent £35,000 on the video. Well, I'll tell you what, I would say it was but everyone said that's at least 35 grand's worth of video. So I kind of took it as that, but it was, it was like a proper advert on primetime TV on the Super Bowl. It was like just beautiful piece of work. And of course, it was so incredible. I think it just swept all the other entries. Having said that, when I've judged, I remember voting someone in. I did the Daddies one year, and actually the best piece of work was one that was on a £5,000 budget that had this huge reach. And sometimes you do sit there and you think, oh, well, you've got a massive budget from that massive brand. You've had a massive budget from that brand, and the results are okay. But these little guys here did for £5,000 got 10 million whatever interactions or whatever it was. And so actually, I think we have to trust judges and people, human beings, not to be, whatever. But I still think if it comes down to it and you have to choose between two and you know one, you don't know one, then, awareness has to be better. But
I think there's also something, so the other piece that we think about when we do award entries is around like the JX, as we call it, the judge's experience. So so there's no point sitting and writing something as though that person is giving it their 100% attention and they're super interested in your company. And because of course the judges are, but they're also maybe reading 30 of these. Or maybe 10, like you're definitely not the only thing being read about this today. So trying to think about what it is that can capture someone's attention.
Yeah.
And that's the same, locally in Norfolk, I've judged a few awards myself.
Have you?
Yeah. But they're sort of business awards in the business community. And it is that thing where you sit and you look at the applications and like you're looking at all of them in an afternoon. So what's memorable? What do I remember right now from the award that I judged a year and a half
ago? It's a great tip because I think it's not easy judging awards.
No,
I must have had about 70 in that category. I think actually, just to say this, I think the Daddy Awards was the one. I think if someone wins a Daddy, they should be really proud because I saw the amount of entries and to win through all of those, I think it's a pretty big achievement. Maybe people don't realise sometimes how many hoops they've had to get through to become that final selection. So. So your journey around culture, so your team's grown, and clearly as someone, who's been a receptionist and gone into running an agency, all of a sudden you've had to learn a lot about people skills, probably very quickly. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of inherent stuff in your personality anyway, but creating a great culture and everything, tell me about the journey that you've been on, because it obviously ends now with you being a supremo with your own podcast, right? So I know that so because of that as well, it's forced your time and focus on culture to be, probably more than most of us get time. I mean, I've read a lot of books and I've listened to a lot of stuff, but I think I think I was ahead of you when I met you. You're well in front of me now. So tell me how that journey of understanding culture really began. And
so I think in that time where we grew so rapidly from like 11 of us to 41 in a short space of time, and by short space, I think that full extent was 18 months. But even in that first year, sort of after winning the awards, we went from at the point where we needed the new office, so that was October. So in less than a year, we'd got to above 30 from 12. And I think that there was a moment where Laura and I were sort of sat down together looking at what had broken, right? Because you grow something fast, things break. And our structure had broken, our communication internally had broken, individual people were not quite breaking, but like almost breaking, just in terms of the amount of pressure on them. And so we were sort of looking at how we could address all of that.
Do you think you recruited too fast in that period, or panic recruited?
We had to. There wasn't a choice, and we got really, really good people in. So it's not like, I don't think that we made any hiring mistakes during that time, but with the rate of growth, we had to recruit. So I guess the only way that we could have not recruited that fast would have been to say no to the clients, but keep in mind that we had to grow our clients that weren't that one mega client, because we had to balance them out. Yeah. So it was faster than the ideal, definitely. And I think we had that realization that we were going to lose one of the things that we really loved about this agency that we'd built, and it was about the culture. And I don't think we'd ever necessarily put our finger on the concept of it being the culture before that. I don't think it was something that we talked about, but it was one of the things that was really lovely. And I remember one of our former employees, who's absolutely brilliant. She sadly moved off to Sheffield at one point, but she texted me at the weekend and said, listen, I've just met up with all my uni mates, and we're all sitting around, and everyone has just spent the past 2 hours complaining about their workplace. And I just want to send you a text and say thank you, because I work in such a lovely place, and I wouldn't sit and enjoyed it. And
you've got a better story than that.
Oh yeah, I do. I'm getting there.
Okay, sorry. I'm preempting. I thought you might have forgotten. You haven't forgotten. Sorry.
I've forgotten. But so. By
the way, that wasn't a planned thing. Then I just know that there's one story about. Yeah, anyway, go on.
So the story that defines the culture for me, and what we were trying to retain when we went through that growth period and realised that we needed to focus on it. We had a new team member. It was just before we won the awards, actually. So he joined the team, and he was in his second or third week of working for us. So he was still under training, and he was working on the launch of a really large client project. So we've got a whole load of people working on this, but not a whole load, because there were only 11 of us. We've got several people working on this, and he was setting up a campaign. It was for a client with lots and lots and lots of campaigns, with a live date coming up, a go live date. And he realised that he'd made a mistake in it, or the quality control picked up that there was a mistake. And it wasn't just one mistake, it was a mistake that had been made early on and then copy and pasted into so many of the campaigns that we were launching at that time. And luckily nothing had gone live, no money was wasted, no issues had come up, but there was going to be a challenge of getting all the work done before the go live date and all of these things. So Laura came through. We were in two spread over 2 offices at that time, and Laura came through from the office with the team in it to me, and she said, right, we've got this issue. So a big mistake has been made. Let's chat about what we do about it. So we thought, okay, the first thing we need to do is stop this guy from spiraling, because he's going to be freaking out, and we really need him to be solutions focused. But he's going to be panicking because it's so early on into his career with us and those things. The next thing that we need to do is actually to get everyone else around him to reorganize their schedules. Maybe some people could work late or come in early or something, because we're going to have to get the work done. So we need all hands on deck to do that. And then we were like, okay, right, should one of us go out and get some treats or something, and be like, hey, donuts, let's work together, kind of thing. So we agreed that that's our plan. So we go through to the other room, and when we get there, we realise that all of this is already happening. So the guy who'd made the mistake, he sort of sat there laughing because one of his team members is sharing a time when she'd made a mistake, and is saying oh no, it happens to all of us, and don't worry, and oh, you think this is bad, wait until you hear mine, completely putting him at ease. And the other team members are all sat there saying, okay, right, I think I'm pretty sure that I can move this work. As long as I get this meeting done, then I'm all yours for the rest of the day. So they're all reorganising their work. They're offering to come in and help out. And then just as we're standing there going, oh, this is so lovely, one of them stands up and says, right, I think I'm going to go out and get some treats. Come on, guys, we can do this together. And it was just an embodiment of what was so lovely about the team that we had working together. And I think that feeling that was so important to us, that we didn't want to lose it through growth. We didn't want to lose what was special to us and to our clients about Fountain through that rapid growth. So luckily there were 4 of us, and I was able to make it a large part of my focus, because I think that if that wasn't the case, if I had been the one having to bring in the business like Rob was, or work out the strategies like Marcus was, or like put all of the service delivery in place as Laura was, there wouldn't have been headspace for it. But that just became my main focus. And then someone very wise recommended some great books to me. Spencer, you recommended a couple of books, which was Holacracy and Reinventing Organizations, which were about non-traditional forms of structure. And we launched into a journey towards a non-hierarchical structure, which on some level is slightly bullshit, because at the end of the day, there are 4 of us who own the company, and at the moment 33 people who don't. So there's a natural hierarchy in there. We also have people who are like 20 years into their career and people who are 2 years into their career. So there's other natural hierarchy. So the way that we define it at the moment is that we just don't have line management. We run an agency without that line management.
Line management, that's probably a good way of communicating it.
Yeah.
So I think you've had to really, and this is the other thing I think, there's no like book that says, here's how an agency, I want to write Agencynomics 2. What do you think? It was torture, the first one. I'm not sure we could do it again. Can you imagine?
How about agencyology?
When people say well done for writing a book, like, I mean, it took a year to get the typos out.
I couldn't look at it for 3 months after we finished it. I was just
so tough. Anyway,
do we need to remove it so you guys can relax?
No, it's fine. I'm cool with it now.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, it's
loads
okay
of therapy.
now. We've just made so many. Yeah, the book's still selling so well. I mean, it's just it's so funny. We just laugh. Christmas was like another record week. You know, you're sort of a year in a bit.
Stocking filler it's been, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I had someone email me from the beach in Bali over Christmas saying I'm on the beach. I was like, great. So I'm reading the book with my girlfriend. She must be really bored. You're sitting there reading our book. Anyway, I've got loads of ideas on what I'm going to do. It was quite, it's so nice. But the point was that, and I guess from the intro that I said a minute ago, or a little while ago, was we couldn't go into a huge amount. We do talk about pod structures. In fact, the last guest has pod structures, and he's had, how many did he say he had now? About it's 80. No, 7. He's got 80 staff, I think. Okay. Yeah, 80. Well, got more, but 80 full time because he's got some flexible work as well. And he's gone on the same journey as well, actually. But what I've seen and I like about you is I think that you've started to, because everyone's unique. I think although there's kind of a level, like holacracy is great, but it's a lot of rules, and you've got to be you've got to sort of buy into a system to use that book, and it doesn't work. Probably may not work for everybody.
The thing that I felt about it, because I think it's a brilliant concept. But, and if I was starting a business,
the circles, the whole that thing's, I think, genius.
Totally. And if I was starting a business today, I would do it with a holacratic system. But I think retrofitting holacracy to a business is. I think the thing that I felt at the time was that we needed a solution fast. And the thing that is so ridiculous about it is that the reason that we chose not to go in a traditional pyramid structure was that we felt there was risk in that there was risk of upsetting people, of hiring in the wrong people, promoting people too soon into roles when they were too early in their career to take the responsibility, like that there were so many risks. So what do we decide to do? Ditch hierarchy, as though that's not risky. It's a ridiculous decision to make. But I think the inspiration from holacracy was excellent. There was no way that we could do it in the short time that we needed to, because you have to have a constitution for the business. You have so many rules. It's so bureaucratic.
But Zappos took on holacracy, I believe, and then even they lost 30% of their. In fact, I'll put this in the show notes. I may have shared it to you way back when, but it's funny you just said those 2 books, because I swear to you, in the last couple of days, I told someone who's right at the beginning of those 2 books, and I showed them a YouTube videos, and it's holacracy versus good to great. So it kind of takes the Jim Collins, classic. Both systems are brilliant, both have strengths and weaknesses. It's all great, but it kind of explains the difference. But I think what you've done really, I'm going to come back to this point. I think you've actually, because the biggest challenge is, well, where's my career? And you've gone away. You've looked at the meritocratic approach, and you've kind of come up now with a way that the team understand that it's about growing their ability. Yeah. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So what we're aiming towards, and it's funny that you say that, and when you messaged me and said, "Hey, would you come on?"
Probably changed podcast as well now since I said that.
Well, no, what I was going to say was that when you messaged me and asked if I could come on, I was like, "Yeah, I'll go on and talk about culture." And then actually, the past couple of weeks, we've had some issues around this, around some of the things to do with career progression, and it's partly because business is going really well at the minute. So suddenly, all these things that we've been like, "Hey, we're aiming towards this," people are like, "Yeah, okay, can we have it now?" And so if we met all of them in one go, we would break all of the financial rules of the universe. So we're having to like work out how we prioritize and look at all of those things. But the intention that we have and the aim that we have with this non-hierarchical structure is that you don't sort of grow your career at Fountain by going from one step to the next of a ladder. Right, we're not going to be one of those businesses that promotes people to their level of incompetency in that, like
power gets removed, right?
Exactly, and you're there wanting promotion because you want the status of it, not because actually you want what's involved in that job. So instead, we run a roles and responsibilities based system. So everyone has their role and their areas of responsibility, and your responsibility might also be like part of your responsibility might be that you need to chase someone up, but you're not managing that person. You just need to make sure that something has been done, right? And we try as much as possible to make sure that we don't sit with these sort of heavy responsibilities all on some people and not on others. So we're looking to distribute responsibility, and we ask everyone to be accountable to the business as a whole, to their clients, and then to their colleagues. And like usually, if you follow all of those rules, people make good decisions, right? Like when they let each other down. Or when something goes wrong, you can usually see where something goes back to that accountability, or that we haven't defined the responsibilities well enough. And we've definitely done that. We've definitely made mistakes where we've said, hey, here's this great role, off you go. And like 4 months later, we're like, I don't think anyone knows what that role actually does. Oh, shit. Right, so it has to go back and revisit it. But what we're, in terms of career progression, what we're talking to our team about is that we want a business of experts who love what they do, are passionate about what they do, and grow in their experience by following their passions, not by getting to a point of, okay, you're good at this, so now you can manage 4 people, as though management isn't a completely different skill and a completely different sort of muscle to strengthen, as it were, than, for example, paid search management or client services or that kind of thing.
Nice way of explaining it. But you've created a lot of systems. I mean, in a way, you probably created your own little holocracy. You've got your own kind of way now of
watch out for the book. It's
we should put them together. In fact, Hive, actually, I'd been nagging them for quite a long time. And eventually they listened to me. Simon's always quite good at giving me the credit. He's not here. He's just walked out. But they switched to, they run 2 pods in here. And the accountability and the ownership is just amazing. It's been a massive, uplift shift for them in the way that people just own things, and they're not passing the buck up the chain, not because ultimately somebody else is actually responsible for it, not them. And there's just greater level of ownership. You can get that in hierarchies, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just what I think our experience is. It just seems to, I guess with us, we're going in quite early to businesses, so we're able to make those changes. I mean, I'd hate to go into a big business and try and make that shift.
It's really tough. When you talk about retrofitting stuff, it's...
Because when you recruit people, you said the other day that you have to sort of explain to people, look, don't come here if you want to be...
Every single notebook that I have, like every third page of it is like just drawings of circles of me saying, and this is how we work here, and that's how we work there, and like explaining that this isn't going to be the right place for someone who needs a manager to tell them what to do, and it's also not the right place for someone whose goal is to be a manager. Right? That's not.
Has that made it harder to recruit, do you think?
No, I think it's made it easier because we're recruiting primarily people who are really excited about this as an idea, like this area. So it works very well for millennials. You're becoming
well known for having that culture and structure in the business.
Absolutely, and we won awards for it. Like we've got.
What's the percentage of people that hate their boss? Isn't there like some?
It's 78% of people say the worst thing about their job.
I know that answer. 78% of people
say the worst thing about their job is their direct line manager.
So like that's why flat structures are so cool, because you can.
But equally, they are also challenging. So at the moment, we have a couple of groupings within the business who are saying, actually, we want management back in here. This isn't working without management. And I think it's not that it's not working. In my view, I might be here like next month being like, that's it. Like, hierarchy back. But actually, it's that something along the line has gotten fixed and isn't evolving properly. And I think that's my big thing about culture in general, is that it's not something that you do. And I guess it's a little bit like a relationship, right? You don't like win the girl, or the man, or whatever, and say, tick, I'm done, right? It's something you have to work on. Like a relationship is something that you put energy into, and it's only as good as the quality of that energy that you put into it. And it's exactly the same about culture. Right, so if you put in a non-hierarchical structure and then go, great, off it goes, right, when actually you have to revisit it, you have to say, okay, which bits aren't working? Where's there not clarity here? Okay, we need to then talk about whose responsibility that piece is, because someone is saying, we need a manager, or I'd like to manage, I want to have the authority to tell people to do something. And we're sitting there going, we don't actually need someone with authority in that way here. We just need the person to hold themselves accountable to what's expected of them, which usually is about communication and clarifying what the expectations are and what the responsibilities are.
Yeah. So that leads on very nicely to kind of the final bit I want to talk to you about today, which is, you as an MD of the business,
soon to be former MD of the business.
soon to be former MD, but since you've been doing the MD role, I've felt, and Pete and I talk about this quite a lot, about that, leaders in agencies today, they don't, there's not, we don't necessarily have as many of the kind of like the Charles and Maurice Saatchi or the David Ogilvy, MT Rainey, like these kind of like high profile, agency owners with an opinion, with a point of view, and we ran an event a couple of years ago, didn't we, on agency owners as influencers, and I talk about Steve Bartlett a lot as someone, and Gary Vaynerchuk as people who have built up their personal brands, and I think developed their points of view. Of course, not everyone agrees with their points of view, but the point, it doesn't matter, because the 50% of people who do follow them, and as we know, the 50% who don't will just hate on whatever on social media. But with you've done a really good job, I think, now of sort of so you've done the MD bit and you're running the business, and you're not, well, you are an actress, so maybe you are an outgoing extrovert, but actually you've built your personal brand up in your way. You've become this expert on culture, and you've had some fantastic guests on there, and I guess let's shamelessly plug.
Yeah, so cultureawesome.co.uk.
Cultureawesome.co.uk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's available on.
It is available on iTunes.
On iTunes.
And all podcasting platforms. It is.
There you go.
We're actually, so we did a season.
And I just say, I'm about, how many episodes did you first season?
10.
I think I'm number 6 because
number 9 is the best. It just is.
I've got to say, I have learned stuff in every single one, and I think I know a lot about this stuff. So I think the couple of the things. Sorry, I'm just going to say this quickly, but is it the first or second episode you talk about the black box? First episode. That was great. The Damien Hughes interview, Barcelona Away, great. That's number 9.
You must have skipped a few because they had that.
I did. Because you told me I've got to listen to it, so I did that and I went back. So yeah, but what impact has that had on you? That's kind of what. So what since, because you're now speaking and. Like your whole personal brand is definitely lifted up. I know Absolutely. You've got, you're still dealing with a growing business and you've got lots of things there going on. But
so I think that one of the things that is lovely for me is that getting out there and talking about company culture is good for our business, right? It's good for our recruitment. It's good for us winning awards as employers. It's good for making relationships with people. Like when I sit down and talk about company culture, people in the audience who go, hey, that sounds great, I'd like to work with them, are the kind of people that we want to work with as well, right? People who are like, that's fluffy and bullshitty and we just want profit and we don't give a shit about anyone. They're probably not going to be the best clients anyway, right? So there's a sort of there's a value to me doing this, to be able to sit down and have conversations about organizational culture, non-hierarchical structure, how we can get the best out of teams. Our mantra is you can't outperform a bad state, and we're a service business, so why on earth wouldn't we invest in like making it possible for our team members to do their best work all the time? So the exciting thing for me is that it works for the business that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Equally, it wouldn't work if I was staying on as managing director, because it's just going to be too much. And I think I say boldly that I think Alice is going to be a better managing director than I have been, because she's going to be able to focus on running the business in a way, whereas I've been sort of floating around doing a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
But for me personally, being able to have a project which makes me sit down and read really interesting books, and then sit down, the podcast I do is with my very, very dear friend Emily Groves, who also runs a business. So she's now stepped down as MD and is doing a degree in psychology. So our season 2 is going to be interesting, because she's going to be sitting there going, I learned this, and I'm going to be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like the actual psychology, not the pop psychology version that we all know.
But you get free therapy. That's quite hard to say that. Free therapy at the back of it, maybe.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is that
we also get your drinks at student prices again if you go out with your friend.
Oh yeah, we should do.
There you go.
There you go.
But can I? What is really good? I hate saying these things live because I think, but having a daughter with a student discount card is really good, especially at Pizza Express.
I heard that.
I heard that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's got a daughter.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much for coming today, all the way from sunny Norwich.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Is it as windy as it is down here at the moment?
Oh, it's ridiculous. We've just moved house and there aren't many buildings around us. The wind has been challenging.
The time's gone really quickly today. Like we've
been great fun.
but it's lovely hearing the story. Big takeaways for me are just much greater level of kind of planning around awards. Don't just do the entry and think that's enough. I think that's been really good. I think the fact that you've gone on this journey of learning around culture and, you know, built your personal brand around that. And I think that's, you know, really strong because a lot of agency owners end up being quite introverted because they don't actually go out and they're not known. And, you know, you've certainly helped to play your part with the awards and now with the podcast. You're certainly helping build that fame and that builds trust, right? So been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming down.
Enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So, hope you enjoyed the episode. Tune in for the next one. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Then you'll get notified all the time when we're live. Thank you for joining us.